America waded even deeper into Syria's civil war on Friday. We launched missiles at 3 targets following an alleged chemical attack by the government of Syria, the regime of Bashar al-Assad. Syria can't do anything about it, but the same cannot be said for some of the sponsors of that country. Russia and Iran both support the Assad regime, and they are more dangerous than Syria. Is America risking a major military confrontation that we're not prepared for? James Kirchick is a visiting fellow at the Brookings Institution. He joins us tonight. Jamie, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So let me just ask you an overview question first that I've been thinking about all day, which is, I just want to question like the basic assumption. We think that the real story and the focus of American power ought to be in the Middle East, but there's all this stuff going on in our hemisphere. The drug war in Mexico, the collapse of Venezuela, the total disarray of El Salvador, a third of whose population now lives here, spreading Chinese influence in the Caribbean and Latin America. Why are we spending any time at all focused on the Middle East when we could focus on those things?
Well, being a superpower means you have to be able to balance multiple responsibilities. But I think the most important reason why what we did last weekend is that chemical weapons were used. And there is a consensus, there's international law among civilized people and nations that chemical weapons should not be used in warfare.
Right, I agree.
And they were used like they were used last year. And President Trump drew that line in the sand that you'll remember Barack Obama drew but didn't actually enforce. President Trump actually enforced it. And it was a surgical strike. We just struck at 3 facilities that were used in the production and the dissemination of chemical weapons, and we hit those. And if Assad tries to use them again, hopefully I think we should hit them again.
But I mean, my job is, as a journalist, to be, loosely speaking, but I want to be skeptical. I feel like that's what I'm paid to do. And so I asked skeptical questions last week, like, how do we know this? Because I haven't seen anybody provide proof, and I've seen a lot of lying about it. We know this when we really don't. And I've been denounced repeatedly as a tool, today by the Washington Post, as a tool of the Putin regime. Shouldn't it make us nervous that we can't get a straight answer? How do we know this exactly?
It's very difficult to actually get at the scene because the Russians and the Syrians are preventing officials from the OPCW, the office that's supposed to monitor the use of chemical weapons. They won't let them there. So that leaves you to question, why are the Russians and the Syrians preventing observers from accessing these sites if they have nothing to hide?
Those are fair questions.
There's other evidence too.
Okay, but those are fair questions. And by the way, I'm open-minded on this as in all things.
Right.
I just think before you launch a strike as punishment for an action, you'd better ascertain with near certainty that the person you're striking was responsible for it and convince the population of that. We don't seem to feel that's necessary because, as you know, this is not really about chemical weapons. It's about making certain that Russia, and particularly Iran, don't gain a permanent foothold there, right?
Well, this attack was about chemical weapons. President Trump has made it pretty clear he doesn't want to spend much time or effort in Syria.
Really? Because Nikki Haley announced just today that our purpose there is to, quote, monitor Iran, leaving no timetable. There's no congressional authorization for that. And you and I both know, and maybe that's a good thing to do.
Right.
I don't know. But we're being lied to. It's not really about chemical weapons, so why don't we...
No, it isn't. It is about chemical... Look, as far as this administration goes, it's hard to tell what's going on because the president says one thing one day. He says we're going to get out of Syria. We want nothing to do there anymore. And then a week later, we're bombing Syria because these are chemical weapons.
Which makes us wonder, like, why is this not a pretext? Why is this not fake? That's the question I ask because it seems clearly fake. Shut up, Putin defender. That's the answer.
Who do you think faked these?
I literally have no idea, but twice in 1 year, the administration announces moves away from its policy of taking out Assad and withdrawing American troops, and within days each time, there's a chemical attack purportedly by the Assad government against its own population that is never proved. Color me skeptical. I'm not a conspiracy nut. Those are fair questions.
Yeah, I just don't think that we're capable of doing something like that. Frankly, it seems a little in the clouds.
Okay, but what is the so we know that we haven't ascertained to an absolute certainty that Assad did this last attack, and yet we moved anyway, and my point, echoing Nikki Haley, was that it's really about Iran. So why lie to the public?
It can be about both things. It can be about enforcing the law that chemical weapons are not used, and that when they are used, the people who use them will be penalized. Let's not forget, it's not the Syrians. The Russians deployed a chemical nerve agent in the United Kingdom about 6 weeks ago.
I think there's
no, there isn't. There's no debate about that.
There's no debate.
No, there isn't debate about that.
Let me say, in my world, there's always debate. There's always debate. Nothing is.
Is there debate about the Holocaust? Is there debate about the moon landing?
Please don't. Come on, let's.
The moon landing.
This just happened, and I think it's fair to ask skeptical questions. And those people who don't are either stupid, or they are willfully ignorant of the fact that life is complicated.
You should be skeptical, absolutely be skeptical, but there's a difference between being skeptical and entertaining conspiracy theories. I think it's quite clear that the Russians used a chemical nerve agent in the United Kingdom.
Then why aren't we attacking Russia?
Well, because they have nuclear weapons and could use them, so I don't think we're going to be...
Good, well, on that...
We're not going to be bombing Russia.
But
there are many things we can do short of bombing Russia to punish them for using a chemical nerve agent.
All right. Jamie Kirchick, I'd like to end, because I'm a fan of yours, I just want to end on a note of agreement. We should not be bombing Russia.
Yet.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm sure we'll get there. Thanks. Fired F.